Before we get into this episode, I would like to make a quick disclaimer that all of Society Inspired's interviews and the information we share are 100% for learning experience and to hear the different sides of the various issues we discuss. We never endorse nor support violence, and we are committed to promoting peace. I want to create a safe space for learning and comfortable place for people to be able to start to speak. Hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Society Inspired. My name is Gemma. I'm 14 years old and a Palestinian American teen. I am super excited to have Alicia D. Williams, author of Genesis Begins Again, as our special guest for episode number 3. Would you like to introduce yourself, tell us your story, and also share your preferred pronouns, please?
Sure. My name is, again, Alicia D. Williams. I go by she, her. And I am an author, a middle grade YA author. I'm an educator. I'm a proud mom of a 21-year-old. And I wrote picture books as well as Genesis Begins Again, which we'll be talking about today.
Yes. Before we dive into the themes of your book, I was wondering if you could please give us a definition of what colorism is, because that is a recurring theme in your book. Where does colorism come from?
Okay, sure. I'd like to give a synopsis of Genesis and get right into the colorism if I can.
Yeah.
So Genesis Begins Again is about a girl who found that thing that makes her unlovable, that makes her feel like she's not good enough.
Mhm.
And that's her dark skin, her natural hair. And she goes about changing it to save her family. She figures that if she's beautiful, like light-skinned mom and with gorgeous long hair, then dad will love her and take care of the family.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of colorism is discrimination within one's community based off of skin tone, light skin versus dark skin. And it's not just confined to skin tones. We base this whole idea of more European features is included in this whole colorism, a more slender nose, thinner lips, hair texture, the finer the hair texture. And that light skin comes with privileges that, you know, darker skin complexion people or hair, kinky or hair texture people will not have otherwise.
Yes. So, I feel like colorism isn't something you normally hear about often when you're talking about racism or societal issues. Something with colorism that was brought up a lot in the book was the paper bag test, the brown paper bag test. Can you explain that test and why it is just so damaging?
Yes. So this whole idea of, and it's such a real thing, the brown paper bag test. So after in America, so colorism exists in every colonized country.
Yes.
Every colonized country. So it's so interesting that you said you're Palestinian. I was just contacted from a college student there that is putting on a colorism conference and wants me to speak, right? Because, and I Googled colorism in Palestine, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? In every colonized country, it exists.
Yeah.
So whether it's by, if like in India, colorism is based off of, you know, if you're peasant, by the darker skin, you're a farmer. You know, in China, you're a farmer. That is the status. But here in America, it's based off of definitely beauty, and it's definitely off of slavery. So it originated from when slave owners separated dark-skinned people to work in the fields and lighter-skinned people, more European-looking people, blacks into the house. So it kept this dynamic. So after Reconstruction and we were free to marry, we started marrying lighter. When you marry light, you raise your status in the community. You have lighter-skinned babies, and therefore you have more privileges. Mm-hmm. So this brown paper bag test came with, it's a physical bag, and it's when they put it to your skin, if you're darker than that brown paper bag, that meant that you can join certain social groups. You couldn't attend certain churches.
Oh,
And we're not talking about segregated. We're talking about within the Black community. You couldn't even be buried in certain cemeteries, Black, if you were darker than that. So we discriminated against ourselves based off of that color. And why it's so damaging is because it still exists. No, we don't go around putting the paper bag next to every brown skin, Black or brown skin person, right?
yeah.
But what we do is we use coded language. Like, I'm not dating a woman that's as dark as Gabrielle Union, or I only want my women to look like Kim Kardashian, or I don't want anybody darker than Halle Berry. So we use maybe celebrities to define what that is. We also, I don't, this is the most painful thing, even in our casting for television shows and in our movies, there is a hierarchy. And it was shown back when the movie NWA, based off the rap group, was coming out. They broke down the A, B, C, D list girls that they wanted. D is the bottom rank, and that was dark skin. And what they said was dark skin, nappy hair, basically, and ghetto. So they attributed the word ghetto, a stereotype with dark skin. C is a brown skin girl, may have a weave, but she's loud. It attributes a whole certain stereotype based off of skin color. B was Beyonce. Beyonce didn't even make A list. Beyonce, weave, classy, was like the lightest, with real hair, real long straight hair. So we tend to do this, and so not only does this brown paper bag test exist, but it connects us to bad stereotypes that yeah, right. You know, the darker you are, the less educated you are, the more ghetto you are, the thug you are, you're the more criminal, you're less attractive. So since it constantly persists, that's why it's so damaging.
Yeah, because I remember reading that part, and it took me I sat there for a while after reading it, and I was like, okay, wait. And I just needed to like think it through, like, how does this work? And once it kind of dawned on me what they were actually comparing or doing, I was like, oh my gosh, like. And when I read the book, after I finished the book and I was doing some more research on just colorism, I saw the brown paper bag test come up on Google, and I was like, wait, this is a real thing. Like, she didn't just like make this test for the book. Like, I thought maybe you're like referring to something and like changed it. No, it's like it's a real thing, and people, I guess, in families still do it. And I was like shocked because that's it seems so, I don't know, it's just so, I was just shocked. I had no words.
Bizarre.
It's bizarre.
When we talk about being inclusive. So back then when I was writing the book, I was getting very close to the subject matter and feeling taking on all of these emotions. And I remember seeing a video, and it's not a thing to say that particularly Black men who become celebrities or athletes, professional athletes, they date lighter skinned women or white women. And it's okay to have a preference, but not at the sake of hating or downing other darker skinned women. So they were at the table. It was a group of professional athletes at the table, and with white wives, and they and they toasted for more light skinned babies. Here's some more light skinned babies.
No.
And why that made me cringe is because we know that you can't control your DNA.
You can't.
And so if you have a light skinned baby, that means you're fetishizing this whole light skin. That means there's something internally that you're fighting against, self-acceptance. So if you're fetishizing this whole light-skinned baby, what happens if you have a dark-skinned baby? What if your next baby comes out more like you, or doesn't have the attributes that you are placing the reign of beauty for, or that whatever it is that you're toasting for? So that bothered me, and it made me cringe too, because I see it, or I've seen it personally working in the kindergarten classroom. I used to be a teacher.
Okay.
And I worked in the kindergarten classroom, and for 6 years, we couldn't understand why our Black and brown children would never use a crayon that matched their skin tone. And we had diversity crayons.
Yes.
But our white children did. They used brown, they used tan, they used every color, but not our brown or Black children, no matter where they were from. No matter where they were from.
Wow.
And it's because they got the message already at 5 years old that their brown skin was not valuable, was not good enough. Wow. And it took us, me and another teacher, a Mexican-American brown skin teacher, to recognize, hey, do you see this trend happening? So that's why it's so damaging. And that's why when we talk about like this, and I wrote the book, I'm like, please don't let us bury this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And reading the book, when you read the book, you will see how damaging just one comment, whether it was from her dad or later in the book, her grandma, how damaging those comments were. They just got worse and worse, and she just kept having more realizations or thoughts that she just wasn't enough, just because of she didn't come out looking like her mom. More so, she came out looking more like her dad. You mentioned already that she feels very guilty about the way she looks and is surrounded by also a verbally abusive family. Throughout the story, Genesis tries to change herself many times, appearance-wise, and is always expecting the worst because that's what she normally received. You often mention in the book that she has a list of 96 things she hates about herself that some girls started at her old school. Where did that idea come from, and why did you have it keep reoccurring in the book?
So one point you brought up, and I'll get to that, is that she kept changing herself. And I think it's important to realize that she is not an anomaly, that we constantly change ourselves based off what people say. And not just kids, because women, adult women, we're seeing, oh, we have to have a bigger butt, or we have to have our breasts sagging, or you know what, Botox. You know, we're told not to have our, we're constantly changing ourselves, right? And so when Genesis gets this list and where it came from, it happened to me in middle school.
No.
Yeah, in middle school, there were 2 girls, and I remember one, Angela was one of the names, and I forget the other girl's name, but they put on my desk a list of 100, it said 100 reasons why we hate Alicia. And I never forgot it. And I specifically remember, and they never finished the list, and I specifically remember some of the reasons. Like, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And I remember it's like stupid stuff, like she smiles too much. She wore the same pants on Friday that she wore Wednesday. I'm like, you paying that much attention to me? Like, you know what I'm wearing? I'm like, I probably didn't even remember it. But that was taken from my real life example. And so it serves as a metaphor. Like, we all keep these lists. Genesis has a real list, but we keep these lists. We remember stuff from kindergarten or, first grade that somebody said, and we store these negative things more so than the positive ones. So it's almost like, well, this is exactly what we do. And I got confirmation on that. Like, Gabrielle Union said it, and Lady Gaga said it, that, when you read the comments on social media posts, they remember the negative ones, not the ones that are necessarily, girl, you're doing it, you were amazing in that show, or that song rocked, but the ones like, how did you wear that? Why would you wear that? And we internalize it, and we keep these lists to remind us, to validate when we go through, I don't feel I don't feel valuable. I don't feel good enough. I'm not worthy. Instead of keeping that list of, you're amazing. I love that song. I love when you walk that, so it kind of reflects the truth of who we are.
That, I was not expecting that answer at all. So even on that list, I just kind of had this thought, but on that list, they did go by some stereotypes that society goes by. Whether it's about colorism stereotypes or just stereotypes in general, what can we do to break those? Because Genesis faced a lot of stereotypes she put a lot of stereotypes against herself in the book, and on the list too in there, and on the list you just mentioned. So how do we break those?
It's a whole one. It's fighting against a whole big old thing. That's like trying to get world peace, right?
Yeah.
It's such a big goal.
Yeah.
But I think some of the smaller things that we can do to chip away at it is one, acknowledge that we have these biases, acknowledge that we kind of believe some of these stereotypes, and not only acknowledge it, we have to attune ourselves to recognize it. And once we start recognizing, like, for how many years did kindergartners not choose their skin tone?
Yeah.
It took us to recognize, wait, why, wait a minute, why aren't they doing it? And to stop and pause and reflect about that. If not, nobody would have said and give them the affirmation like, oh, there's an issue here. So how can we combat that? Right. And also not to be more attuned. Like we talked about how I get a lot, I didn't know this existed, but it exists. Like if you Google, and that's one thing that readers can also do, Google colorism in Pakistan, colorism in Latin America, colorism in academia, colorism for, you will see that there's so much there. So once we do that, we get to start recognizing it, and we can call people out on it. I remember my grandmother saying stupid stuff like, don't have a baby by a dark-skinned man because you're gonna have a dark baby. I'm like, I'm like, what? Or, or my brother having a whole fetish of wanting a baby that had color eyes and good hair, and being able to have the bravery and courage to say, you know what, there's an issue there. That's kind of problematic. We do it now, and we're starting to recognize it with marketing and advertising. And you have L'Oreal, you have these major companies, and every year it never fails. It's some stupid ad that shows use this soap and you come out white bright. And they showed like one of them was a brown skinned woman, and when she pulled the shirt over, she was white with red hair. And it's like, did you pass this? That this is the goal to turn from black to white? And by using your soap. So stopping to like recognize it in advertising. It's in our music too. Like they hear it in our music and our rappers and in hip hop, the whole climate of it, and saying that's problematic, and not just not necessarily always having the courage to call it out, but understanding and have these conversations. Yeah. I know you're listening to that. I know you love that brand, but did you realize this is happening?
Yeah.
I think we have the power, especially with social media, to dismantle things in a different way that we hadn't had that power to do so before. And I think this generation under me is so much more braver with social media that they are with TikTok. People are making these things, and they're coming with facts, and they're attacking. They're able to attack, L'Oreal for bad advertising in a way that it was slow moving for us in a different generation, right? So I appreciate people for doing that. I appreciate people for wanting to figure out ways to do it. And like the conference, there's a whole conference on colorism. And I would have never imagined someone would saying, hey, we need to hear from you all the way from America. How can let's talk about this. And
Yeah.
that is definitely a major way, keeping this conversation going.
Yes. Yes, hopefully this interview will start up more conversation too with my community, and it will reach out and people will start to have this conversation more and discuss overall, what do you want people to take from Genesis Begins Again, and what do you want people to feel?
I really, if I can leave my readers with a few nuggets, I would really want them to be brave. Be brave enough to start to define beauty for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Be brave enough to reject how marketing and advertisers and social media influencers define what beauty is,
Yes.
and really understand that they are good enough as they are, right? We'll never obtain this whole rat race of beauty, because they'll change the goal every time to sell more products, to sell more and more and more. I want them to have the courage to find their voice. This to when people impose this, they know, I don't need this. I know me. I'm good enough as I am. And just like Genesis, like, she owned her parents' mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And she was owning this old traditional way of thinking. Even though she was trying to buck it, she was still thinking this is the right way. I want my readers to know that they don't own their parents' mistakes. You can make your own mistakes.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have your own consequences. Let them have their own. And also buck the labels people put on you. The people are gonna tell you what you can and cannot do. You will be better if you were taller. You'll be better if you were like your sister or your brother or more athletic. Whatever labels they put on you, you don't have to subscribe to them.
Yes. What can we do to change colorism in the modern day and stop it from happening to the future generations, whether it's within the race or outside of it?
Again, I think what we can do is definitely educate ourselves on it.
Yes.
There's so many people who say to me, one, I did not realize this. I didn't know this. And then there's so many people who say as well, this is the book I needed when I was 13. That meant to me that we just swept it under the rug, and we will continue to not discuss this or try to find solutions for this. Because if you were 13 and you're now 50 reading a middle grade novel, you needed this book. Or if you are 15 and you never heard of this, that means we're not talking about this, not nearly enough. Because whether it be internalized racism or overt racism, period, we are labeling a whole group of people and keeping them, whether we define them for beauty or we have biasness in our school system, because we still have them, and we want to punish the darker skin, or whether our churches. I grew up with, in our churches, colorism. That meant that it was acceptable. Our silence makes it acceptable. So I educate ourselves, and we stop being silent about that.
Yes.
About colorism.
What is your advice to anyone that is suffering colorism? Where should they go? Who should they, talk to? What would you say?
I'm a big advocate for healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that therapy is a privilege, because you need health insurance, you need the support to get you there.
Yeah.
And if that privilege is available to you, I definitely feel like talking these things do, because you don't want a life lived feeling like you are unworthy, that you're unlovable, that you're not good enough, right?
Yeah.
And allowing someone to define your beauty and select you as a mate, or reverse colorism, or to select you as a mate because you're a light skin or a trophy, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to harbor this, right? So if you can't do therapy, I say surround yourself with people who will encourage you and speak life and healing into you. And then sometimes it's not even in our family. Sometimes we have to go outside of our family.
Yeah.
I a big person. The library has so many self-love books.
Yeah.
And a few therapists I follow on Instagram, they have books about acceptance, and I'm like, I need that. Um, as well as the affirmations. Sometimes you have to figure out those affirmations and repeat them in the mirror, no matter how long it takes. Like, I am worthy. I love my skin. I love my color. I love my, until you start to embrace it. There are ways, surround yourself with the artwork so you can see what beautiful images look like reflected back to you. If you got to make a collage, make a collage so you are reminded that this is who you are and this is lovable and acceptable.
Yes.
And so many little ways that we have to fight for our self-love and self-care.
Yeah, it gets dampened so easily with our society and social media today, and we just, especially my generation, like we grow up feeling like so bad about ourselves because of, the people we see on Instagram or something. It's just like, or the people that are on TV. Like, it's just like, self-love is so important. You just talked about some research.
Self-love is so.
Yes. You did just talk.
Sometimes we have to shut down those things that are damaging and triggers for us too.
Yeah.
We know we don't have the right filters. We know we don't have, like, these people on social media have the right tools to make them look unbelievable. And what we see, we think is like face value. And it's not always face value. Celebrities, they got dietitian. I'm looking at J-Lo. I'm like, she has a dietitian, a nutritionist, a personal trainer. It's her job to look like that at 50. I'm 50. Like, I don't have all of those resources, but I can't compare myself to her. And I'm at that point where I need to love me and to be like, this body got me through, this to another day. I can't. So I think sometimes we got to give ourselves permission, like, stop comparing yourself to something that is not realistic.
Yes. You did just mention some resources. Are there any other resources that you would like my followers and I to watch, read, listen to? Of course, your book is already included. I will be linking. Of course, I'll be linking both of your books. But yes.
Yes, on my website, I have some interviews linked on the. Some of them are on the contact me, and some of them are on interviews. I've been keeping some of the videos up, and there are great panels. There are great conversations are surrounding colorism and self-love and acceptance that you can look into. And also, we are so attached to our phones, and to educate yourself more on that conversation and what others are doing, Google colorism. Like I said, like, I never knew that there would be a conversation in certain areas and not be contacted. So Google, if you didn't even realize that happened in Pakistan, Google colorism in Pakistan. Or if you didn't realize, or colorism and activism, I really didn't understand how activism was being affected by colorism. So find these conversations. There are wonderful academic people and bloggers who are really doing the work out there, and to amplify those. Amplify something that's good and put it out there, share with other people.
Yes. Okay, the last question.
It takes all of us to get this dismantle colorism.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I want to do definitely some more research for just everywhere, because this is also a very new topic for me. So I'm so happy that I had this discussion with you. Okay. the last question I have for you is, where can my followers and I find you on social media so we can keep up with you?
Yeah, I wish I was good at TikTok, but I'm not. I look at all I look at is like now is like cat and dog videos and stuff like that.
Love
But
that.
definitely, I am more active on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram at Author Alicia D Williams. I love to follow you and let me know I follow you back. And I am ramping up my YouTube channel, and I will be adding more content come this fall on Author Alicia D Williams on YouTube as well.
Cool. I will link that in the description also. I'm making a quick note of that, so I don't forget to do that. Yeah, go check out her YouTube channel. I can't wait to watch those. Um, okay. Uh, Thank you so much for taking your time to do this interview. Make sure you go out and buy Alicia's books and follow her on her social media platforms. Also, make sure to follow Society Inspired's other social media platforms so you don't miss out on more interviews and important information. I hope you enjoyed episode 3 of Society Inspired, and we'll see you guys next time.